we're hoping that we're going to build a relationship with somebody over 50 emails, over months and months of content, and hoping that they remember who we are. I call it microdosing, and I call it a completely broken system.
Your work is the kind of work that changes people's lives. But if you ever watch the strangers scroll past everything that you do and not even pay attention, this episode today might hit you a little bit different. My guest is Mariana, an Emmy-winning documentary filmmaker turned sales and story strategist. She spent over 20 years learning exactly what makes somebody trust you, buy from you fast, feel something, and now she teaches online coaches just like you how to do that without living on that content treadmill. We'll be talking about human connection videos and the trust triggers behind it. And we're going to talk about what is actually happening and not happening in that gap between who you are on a call and that 15-second video that you're posting online. If you've ever been told that the answer is just to post more, this episode is going to make you rethink the whole thing. Let's get into it. Here's Mariana. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental Video Podcast. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, and today I have Mariana Henninger with me. I'm so excited to have this conversation because she is such a good artist when it comes to helping you share your message, what your business is all about, and the unique things that make you you. So welcome, Mariana.
Oh, so excited to be here. I love talking all things human connection, trust. I think you're a rock star, so I'm just excited to chat.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. All right. So I want to start from a little bit of your background because I know you are an Emmy-winning documentary filmmaker, and now you just help us smart, hardworking people tell our stories and, with some strategy behind it. So tell us a little bit about how did you see that in that documentary world and then bring it back into what we do right now?
Yeah, of course. I think if I were to start with the ending, which is sometimes a really cool way to start a story, is that I've always been a closeted entrepreneur. So even though I spent 15 years in documentary filmmaking, traveling the world, working for really big, or not online, but news organizations in general, like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine. I was at NBC for 5 years, working out of 30 Rock. So I got to be inside the newsroom, but I also got to travel, to Afghanistan and Haiti and the Middle East. I was stationed for a long time, and Europe as well. The cool thing, the amazing thing about 15 years of making documentaries was that I had to learn to build trust fast with people, right? So I didn't have months and months to work on long form projects. I had to make a documentary style video in about sometimes 3-4 minutes, sometimes 10-15 minutes. You really need to pack a lot into something of that length. Well, we know that with content, right? It has to be good. And when we're looking at telling somebody's story, we have to film a lot and we have to get them to open up to a complete stranger, myself. And so I had to come into these circumstances. Sometimes it was a Bedouin tent. Sometimes it was a war zone. Sometimes it was a factory in Kabul making army boots, and get people to feel so comfortable with me and really trust that I was going to do their story justice to the point where they could open up to me. So that was one, like understanding the psychology and the inner workings of how trust really plays out in a human to human connection. The second thing I had to learn is in that story, which parts of that story were really going to move the needle for somebody halfway across the world. Or even, in the stories that I filmed in the US, not everything impacts you or is relevant to you. How could I make it relevant to you? How could I find the human universal themes that were going to make you feel something, make you care, make you pay attention, and ultimately help you take action? One of the really cool stories in regards to taking action was a story of mine that ended up being played in Congress and enacted law. And so, which is to a documentary that's kind of a filmmaker, that's kind of a dream where you see the impact, where you actually see it. So those two things are kind of what I walked away with from a really intense career in doing this behind the camera. But like I said, kind of, started with, I was a closeted entrepreneur, meaning as I was doing these things, I always thought in the back of my mind, okay, like one day I want to own my own business. And like selfishly, truly in a very like tactical, sort of practical way, the last few years of my time as a documentary filmmaker in a news organization, it took me like a long time, even with an Emmy, to negotiate for a raise. And I kind of felt like, man, like, doesn't my work like prove that I deserve to be paid more? And I was paid really well. So in all fairness, I was making a really nice salary, but I wanted more, and I do want more. And I kind of vowed to myself after a year plus of negotiating for a higher salary that I would never do that again. This is not how I want to operate. I want to be able to make my own decisions and be in charge of how much I earn. And I know I have the chops for it. So that kind of brought me out of working for somebody else and into kind of understanding, I could go into detail about what made me choose the online space. But ultimately it was things like, these are all people most people who are really driven by this passion for what they do and what they can help people with. A lot of my clients are very impact driven. They understand that they have something really powerful to share with the world, not just in the form of a message, although that can be just the case, but often in the form of a coaching program or some way that they help other people really change their lives in some way or another. They are often bootstrapping it, right? Like a lot of folks in the online space, we're not applying for funds or for fundraising or investors or any of that jazz that comes typically with the startup world. We're like, okay, here's my 401k, let's go. Which was my case. That was my startup money and my fuel to my rocket. I really identified with that. I was like, I love it. It's based on this. It's not based on this person. Revolves a lot around building a personal brand in the sense that you are the face of your company. Most of the time, you are the head coach, the CEO, even if you're not in charge of all of the delivery, or maybe you still are. And all of those things like really resonated with me.
I love that. Such a good story. And I like that you were really able to pick up the very important things from that area and then pull it into something that you can use with your clients today. So love that aspect. So tell us a little bit you talk about how cold audiences are really not able to feel the magic online, right? They have a hard time, feeling, connecting. Walk me through what is actually happening or maybe not happening in that gap between someone being very brilliant at what they do, very good at what they do on a call, and then that same brilliance kind of falling flat when they post a video.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you describe. I always like to hear how people describe it because I kind of talk about the same things over and over. So I love just picking up the little nuances of how you describe that. Funny enough, Nata, it's kind of the continuation of my story. So when I decided, like, I think this online marketing thing, like, I like it. I totally got sucked into Russell Brunson's funnels. Like I was sliding down all the funnels. Obviously, the algorithm picked up on me mighty quickly. I was getting bombarded with ads and all sorts, like everything sounded so sexy and so urgent and so necessary. And the copy was just like, oh my gosh, I must have this. Like most of us, right? When we come into the space, unless we're like really seasoned coming into the online space, it's shiny object syndrome on crack 24/7. And what was happening is I was signing up for these lead magnets, these like must-have resources. And as people were emailing me in their nurture sequence or whatever I got put on, they would show up in my inbox. And this is going to sound super familiar to everyone listening to this because half of the time, if not more than half of the time, I would be like, who the heck is this person? What did I sign up for? Like, who is this? I don't remember who this is. And it happened, luckily for me, like very early on into my journey where I had this epiphany. I had this thought of like, I must have signed up for something. Here's this person in my inbox, but also my inbox was not triaged at the time, i.e. I was getting a lot of stuff and I wasn't as good about unsubscribing to a bunch of stuff. But it made me think like, this is what they're doing. Like I signed up for that thing and now I'm getting this person's emails. But again, who are you? I have no idea who you are. I realized how, and then as I started learning online marketing, I was like, oh, this is what we're told to do. We're hoping that we're going to build a relationship with somebody over 50 emails, over months and months of content, and hoping that they remember who we are. I call it microdosing, and I call it a completely broken system, a completely broken approach to online marketing. We're banking and we're just accepting the lie that we've been told that it takes months and months and months to build trust. It takes all of these thousands of touch points, and it takes 70 hours of consuming somebody's content. I knew so much better because I had experienced this differently in my own world, right? Like I could get somebody to care in 3 minutes without having met that person before. Like I know that's possible. Let me give you a real life example that you will resonate with, not having been a filmmaker. Although you do photography, so you might be off the hook a little bit. But everyone will resonate with the fact that when you meet somebody, even in a Zoom room, right, where you have that one-on-one interaction, if somebody has a really good story, guess what? You'll probably remember them, or at least you'll remember their face. There's going to be real estate in your mind that's created as a result of an impactful, intentional human connection, top of funnel, right? So essentially, like if you can do this, if you can manage to get somebody in that moment that you described when you were asking your question, right? So I call it the instant trust test. It's basically when somebody finds a comment or sees your name somewhere, sees something that you either commented on a thread or your name comes across their desk in some way. And what is the very next thing we do if we're intrigued? We check them out, right? We're going on their socials. We're going on their website. By the way, your About Me page is the second most visited page on your website. Why is that? Because people care about who you are. They care like, okay, what's your deal? They're sussing you out. This is, to me, the most neglected moment in all of marketing, Nata. We don't pay attention to that experience nearly enough. I think there's been some effort in regards to like making sure your bio on Instagram is punchy. Like many other folks, you might have an About Me carousel or something that's pinned. I challenge you so hard to even remember one factoid from an About Me carousel that you read. It is hard. It's basically words on tiny words that we're like skimming over. So I was like, that's also broken. And I see the attempt. I see like, I love that people are trying to do this, but that's it's not impactful enough, not nearly enough. When you can go from that sort of end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, which is the human connection video, right? So this is this idea where if you can grab your story and understand how to tell it, which parts to tell and how to tell it in a way that's going to speak directly to your dreamiest client, the moment that she or he is meeting you, and you compose that in a 2 to 3 minute video that really takes them on the journey of who you are, and it activates the trust triggers, which I'm happy to talk about what those are. Man, you're halfway there. And I can see that, with my clients where, people are signing up to their VIP tier within 1 week, Nata. Like talk about a short sales cycle here. They're going from like months of nurture necessary to like people are crying when they watch these videos. And you don't have to have a sob story for this to work. You just need to understand how to tell yourself. Everybody has a story that will connect with your ideal audience. I don't care how far removed or whether you don't have overlapping experiences. We can talk more about how to find the pieces of your story that will resonate with your person and get them to not only pay attention, but like literally create real estate in their minds so that every time you do show up, it's like seeing a familiar face. It's like, oh my gosh, I love Nata. And like, even if they're not thinking that out loud, they're like subconsciously, all of these feelings that you created are now resurfacing thanks to all of the, speaking of subconsciously, don't get me started. There's like a lot of neuroscience that goes behind this. It's not just like fluffy theory. Literally, it's proven by science. And there's oxytocin, which is the trust hormone. So I can get into like the very nuts and bolts science behind all of this. But the idea, I think we just all experience that when you create a really strong connection with someone, you are paying attention to them every time they resurface. Whether you understand that or not, like you are closer to fully trusting them. I'm not saying that you can build 100% trust in 2-3 minutes. It's not instant, but man, you are so much farther ahead in that process.
Yeah, our brain does love stories, and we remember things better that way. Would you say if we have to summarize in a very simple way for people to understand, or two sentences, that main fundamental difference between the human connection video and that testimonial video or brand video that most people have out there, what would you say is the main difference there?
I think so. The human connection video is unlike any other marketing video. There's no call to action at the end. It's not made for you to buy something. It's literally if we were to sit down for coffee and have this like really intimate conversation where you're basically speaking to me like I'm already your close friend. And then this is kind of the sneaky part. This is where marketing comes in, where you're not just telling your origin story. You know exactly which parts of your story and how to share them that are going to speak directly to me. And so, again, different from any other video where we're clearly, steering somebody in a direction. And there's like, again, a call to action or some sort of, this is the next step. There's no next step after the human connection video. It's lives in an ecosystem where the next step is kind of right next to it or right, around it. But the beauty of this, and this is why my business is called Brand Magnetic, it is like to magnetize people. There's so much power when you are able to get your ideal, dreamiest client to move themselves. They will be the best client for you. They will be the most willing to do the work, the most gung-ho, rah-rah super fan. They will be the easiest to work with. They will get the best results. They will probably spend the most with you with the highest lifetime value. The people who move themselves versus are convinced and sort of beaten down into a sale are the best to work with. So I typically don't help, or I mean, I can, but I don't attract people to my universe who have sort of a big volume, low ticket business model, because that relationship of trust is not as required for a $27, $47 sale as it is for a 3, 5, 10K, $50K ticket offer. So when you have to build that trust as a crucial part of your business, doing that in a way that is absolutely not pushy and it's just relationship building in the most intentional and strategic way, but heartfelt and human and, big A word, authentic. That's the most powerful. And I have seen, results for my clients that show that.
This episode is brought to you by my one-on-one Freedom First Leadership Coaching. This is for founders who are still the glue in their company and want to become the calm, precise CEO. Together, we will redesign your role, install clean decision rights, and delegate outcomes with a clear definition of done. You'll leave with a weekly operating cadence, a 90-day plan, and the confidence to scale without being on call to everything. If you want high standards at a human pace, apply now at accidentalceo.co/coaching. That's accidentalceo.co/coaching. Yeah, and that's so important. And I think a lot of founders hear that we need to tell better stories, and they think that just means that you need to be more vulnerable and more open. So tell us a little bit about how is what you teach different from just being more personal in your content?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love that you asked that, Nata. I think there's so little attention paid to the nuance of that. I think a lot of the advice, like you said, is a little bit cookie cutter. And to be fair, it's not bad advice, right? And I think if you're coming from a place of not sharing any of that, and you hear that advice and you can kind of move the needle a little bit towards showing up more as a person and less of like, I am an expert, I must say this, and I must show you my tips and tricks, and kind of I think it helps to talk about the trust triggers to answer your question. So there are 4 trust triggers that we really focus on when we are creating our human connection video, but also when we're building the entire trust ecosystem that gets you premium pre-sold clients. And the trust triggers that, again, must happen at, most importantly, top of funnel are your ideal client needs to, this is, by the way, this is not going to be new. It's just a nice little framework to understand the experience that your client needs to have, your prospect needs to have. Number 1, they should feel that you get them on the deepest level. This comes obviously beyond surface level. It's psychographics to the max. It is the thoughts that they can barely synthesize and express themselves. Like if you can get that deep into their psyche and verbalize that for them, you know what, like this marketing 101, but just like going way deeper than we usually tend to go. Number two, trust trigger number two is that you care about them, Nata. Like, oh my gosh. So this one is so important, especially as people are more burned than ever in the online space, having spent, tens of thousands of dollars sometimes on a program that doesn't deliver. They were overpromised, marketing hype. You know the drill with the trust recession. But this idea that I'm not a number, I'm not your lead on a spreadsheet. I'm not the lead that you're going to pound on my head until I buy from you. Like you truly care about me and getting me results. And that's what our, again, speaking of premium clients, typically, right? So a more higher end sale, they need to feel that. They need to feel that they're not just going to be neglected the moment they buy, and that they're not just a number on your Stripe screenshot that you get to float around. Number three, that's where the expertise comes in. So to your point of like storytelling and being vulnerable and all of that, if you're coming from a place on really leaning heavily on that third trust trigger, which is the experience / credentials / showing that you've done this, and this is where testimonials come in as well. That's all great. Again, but to me, that's the third trust trigger that needs to come after those other two. And it is important, obviously, because you're not just going to pay somebody because they get you and care about you. Like you want to understand that you've got them, that they've got you. So that's like where the sigh of relief comes in. And number four, this is where your personalities align. So also kind of ties in to your, to answer your question. When your ideal client is a premium high ticket buyer and they see that your values are in alignment, that they would actually enjoy the process of working with you to get to the results. This is a huge differentiator. This is why they pick, this is why the coaching industry exists in the age of AI and will persist. For that reason, maybe I'll even move that one up in the trust triggers sequence, because people are choosing to work with specific people for a reason. We know that they're not buying information. We know that they're not buying tips and tricks, strategy, all that's for free, basically. And so they're wanting to work with you, and they want to enjoy the process of working with you because of your perspective, because of the way that you speak to them, because of how you care for them, how you get them. So when you use storytelling in your, and I'm assuming we're talking about like in your content, to reveal those values, you are building trust in that way. And I think the slippery slope, and maybe this is what your question was getting at, perhaps is that we often hear, to me, a really misguided piece of advice, which is like, we need to be relatable. And there's something very different between showing your values and that they align, and being relatable to your client. Your client will not pay you a lot of money if you are in the same boat as they are. They want to work with somebody who is the guide, who has got them. They're literally paying for relief. They're paying for the hope of transformation and the relief that they've made the right choice to work with you. And so if you are playing in the relatability boat quite a bit, and not understanding that relatability should focus specifically on your values and how they play out in your life. I'll give you an example. There's this gal I follow. Funny enough, she's not really my type. And so I haven't invested high ticket with her. She's not the person that I would invest high ticket with. She's an awesome coach. Don't get me wrong. Just like not my person. But I see her posting, for example, content about her fitness journey. And that is one way you can express your values, right? Like if you enjoy clean eating, and I'm just saying, I'm like, these are the background fringes of your main message that your audience is going to pick up on. If you have a messy desk behind you, you always have a beautiful setup, Nata. Your hair always looks perfect. That says something about you, and I think that we underestimate how much our audience picks up on these visual cues and on these narratives that are not in the forefront to literally create the picture of who you are. Now, what we do is we front load that into your human connection video so that there's less of a load on having to produce a million pieces of content before your audience can really form the full picture of who you are. But if you don't have that on the forefront, that's what's happening is like they're picking up on, that's why I call it microdosing. They're picking up on these subtle cues over multiple hundreds of pieces of content in order to form the picture of who you are. And a big part of that picture are your values. So
yeah, our brain is always computing all of that information. Well, whether we are aware of it or not, it's doing its job and it's kind of composing a story in our brain of, how is the story that you're telling me in combination with all the visual things, with all the other senses? Like, what is that? Is that really, telling me a true story? Because your brain can pick it up. Whenever you're seeing and you're hearing, they're not matching. Like your brain, they're like, there's something off about it. Like, I don't know why, but I don't feel like I don't feel it doesn't click, like your brain knows that. Yeah. So it's paying attention to these things all the time.
yeah, I forget that I'm speaking to somebody who understands visuals. So you described it perfectly. Yes. You get that.
I totally get it. Yes. That's part of, why I love having like 6 different businesses in different industries, because it gives me so much perspective and like different things. For the founder that is listening who really feels like he or she already have that doing the content thing, they're doing that and they're still not converting the way that they want. What is usually that thing that is like still keeping them the real diagnosis when you look under the hood for these people?
I mean, that it's a bit of a tough one to like diagnose across the board, but I'll tell you one that's like really often missing. Okay, so for the most part, and I'm just speaking from probably hundreds of coaches that I've spoken to, hundreds of founders who are selling something online. As much as they might have a content strategy, it still is throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that the volume and the repetition and the consistency of seeing them on your feed is going to build trust, right? So a lot of people are playing the long game in that regard, and often without a Hormozy marketing team. So it's the playbook of folks who typically have big or a marketing team at all, and that's sort of the playbook that we've all been handed. Is just like, you're not converting, you're not producing enough. Go produce more content. Go try to go viral. Go try to get more eyeballs. And the reality is we focus so much on getting more eyeballs that we're not properly doing the work with the eyeballs that we do have. And it's a little bit like, I actually heard this metaphor recently and I thought that was brilliant, which is if you were taking a kid to a daycare and that business was like, yeah, we lose some kids sometimes. Like, I don't know, but we need more kids. We like, we'll take good care of your kids. And it's like, absolutely not. You're not dropping your kid off there. And the same thing will happen energetically with your business, where if you are constantly just looking to put more people into your world, into your funnel, without taking care of the ones that are already in there, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that, more people will not come. Or if they do come, they're going to bounce right off. They're not going to stick, or they're going to take 6, 12, 18 months to convert. Instead of having a volume approach, spaghetti at the wall approach for the people that are in your ecosystem already. So essentially, like, stop worrying so much about top of funnel and increasing your numbers and focus on getting the people that you already have, assuming you have. If you're the very beginning, focus on getting more people. If you have a contingency, what you need to be doing is really mapping out what it looks like for them to get from point A to point B. And I know that sounds ridiculously simplistic as I just said it, but what that actually means is sales are nothing more than trust and belief shifting. That's it. So the way that we do it is kind of a 3-part way, which is first, connection. That's where we talk about the human connection video, top of funnel. We basically clean house. We clean house so that every new person that does come in is looking at understanding exactly who you are very, very quickly, feeling you, which is what we started with, trusting you. We're activating the trust. We're building memorability and stickiness at the top first. Then we very quickly shift to middle and bottom of funnel. So middle and bottom of funnel, the other two C, so connection first, then it's conviction. So this is where we work. So point A to point B, what does that mean? We are belief shifting everything else that is like all of the, let's say they trust you, they still need to be bought into what you're doing and your method and your approach. So if they trust you, they're kind of halfway there because, I mean, you might have experienced this. When you trust somebody and they come out with a new thing, you're like, I didn't even read the sales page. Like, I know it's going to be good and I get the gist of it. I'm in, right? That happens a lot with people when the trust is like so strong already from that person. But instead of following a random ass content calendar, think of really mapping out the belief shifts that need to happen. Like, what is the problem in their perspective and what is the actual problem? What is the identity shift that needs to happen? What are the case studies that support that? Meaning, I don't believe this can happen for me. That might be a belief that needs to be shifted. I don't believe this is the right method. Well, let me show you results, right? So this is what we do with our clients, where we map out 6 to 8 beliefs and we create content around those beliefs. We infuse testimonials in there and case studies to support that. But for the most part, we're literally just perspective shifting the entire time. The third part of that is putting that in an engine. So it's continuity, connection, conviction, continuity, where we are putting that content in front of our audience over and over again. Not the same content, but it's the same idea where like, I'm going to shift this belief. I'm going to shift this. And like all of a sudden you're on their feed a lot without having to post a lot. And obviously we're using retargeting ads for this, but it's like a very specific way to focus on the warmest people. And really, this is where the idea of a pre-sold client comes in, where my clients, myself, we experience this thing where like, we're not even doing sales calls anymore. We're literally like, sure, I'll hop on a call with you, or we could do it over voice message on Instagram. If you have any other questions, here to answer your questions. But I'm not getting you on a call where I'm going to objection handle the crap out of you, because that's happening beforehand. We're literally letting them sell themselves by giving them exactly what they need to hear and see and believe and feel before they're ready to raise their hand. And then when they do, they're like, where's the link?
So good. You took us from top to bottom. I love that. Explained everything, all the good things. It's time for our surprise question. Yes, I've been having fun asking these random questions to my podcast guests. So here is yours. What's something that always makes you feel a little brighter?
Oh, can I do a lot brighter?
Yeah.
You know what? It would be probably harder for me to think of a little brighter. I mean, literally, it's kind of funny, but my mind went to when I find a random piece of chocolate somewhere around my house. That will make my day a little bright. But a lot brighter is I'm like such a beach person, Nata, like coming from Rio, I'm obsessed with the ocean. So I'll tell you what makes my day a lot brighter is when I wake up and I realize like I get to work for myself today and I get to build my own schedule. It's really fun when there are full days without like a single call on my calendar. And I'm like, aren't those the freaking best? Look at your reaction just now. You're like,
Right?
I like that just makes my day so much brighter where I'm like, I can do whatever I want. And of course, you've got other responsibilities, but if I can end my day at 3:00 and head to the beach, go for a swim, oh man, I'm made.
Yes, I love that. I remember struggling in the first few years leaving corporate to have a flexible schedule because I was so used to you work Monday through Friday, you work, 8 to 5. And my first job outside of corporate, like you mentioned, was in photography. So I was working on the weekends, I was shooting a lot of weddings. And I realized I was going weeks and weeks without having a day off because I'm like, you work on your business Monday through Friday, but then I was shooting on the weekends and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have a weekend anymore. Like I need to shift. I had to make like Tuesday and Wednesdays were my new Saturday and Sundays. And just that thought of like, I can actually start working at 10 because I can.
That took me quite a chunk of time, Nata, too. Just coming from that like nine to five. It's never 9 to 5. Let's be real. Like it's like 9 to 6, 9 to 7.
But I'm like, hey, I worked a little bit extra last night. I can start at 10 today. It's fine. I'm the boss. But oh my gosh, it took me so long
I know.
to get into that mindset, just, coming from a very specific schedule. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I love that.
One thing I did, when I left corporate, I put my foot down for any work related thing on Saturday. So sometimes I'll do a little bit of work on Sunday. It's because like Saturday is my Sabbath, and I've like foregone going to conferences, or I'll leave on Friday. I am like so adamant about respecting one day of the week now. I don't answer phone. I don't I'm off. Boop, I'm out, baby. And it really has helped tremendously with burnout. Like I have not felt burnout in years because it's just like a really intentional built-in off switch. I know it's tougher because if you're, weddings and stuff tend to be on the weekend.
I just picked a very interesting one to start with, working on the weekend. Well, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to work together and finally start making that amazing video.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I typically mention this like when we're talking about the human connection video. Our tagline is when you watch it, you feel it. So as much as I talk about it, it really makes an impact when you watch one of these. Whether or not that person is even speaking to you, you feel something. And in fact, a lot of times, we've had clients recommended via somebody else that watched their brand video. Brand video. That was what we used to call it, the human connection video. And so if you go to brandmagnetic.com, you'll see a bunch of them there. And I also go more into like the 3 C's that we talked about: connection, conviction, and continuity. And then platform wise, I'm typically on Instagram, same handle, Brand Magnetic. Come say hello. I respond to my DMs. I don't have any setters and closers, or if there is an automation in my DMs, it self-identifies like, hey, this is Mariana's bot. So you'll never be talking to a robot thinking you're talking to me. I'm really big on that nowadays. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and really helping people understand the main difference between just putting some testimonials in a basic brand video out there and really creating something that helps you connect in a whole different level with your ideal client. So thank you.
Yeah, Nata, great. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.